ago and works at pretty regular part-time, and when he puts on his civilian clothes, he's a tax consultant. It's nice. We have people who are living the Superman kind of life here, and that's Hank Andreoni. There you go.
First, I've got to figure out what all these wires are for, and then we'll get started. I'd like to welcome you to the session this afternoon on electrotherapy from the past. I never realized myself how much of electrotherapy once existed in this country. I guess it was several years ago. I was at a swap meet and I picked up one of these old electrical devices. It just looked curious. I didn't know what it was for a couple of years later, until I got another device and it had the instruction booklets with it. That is what started turning the light on, that there's something out here that we don't see anymore. What is it? It's electrotherapy. Most of the presentation we're going to go into this afternoon is going to deal with slide presentations and actual demonstration of some equipment. Can everybody see this here, or do we need the lights down? Okay, I guess our first question, what we want to start with, is what is electrotherapy? Basically, electrotherapy is the application of electricity or vibrations to the body that causes actions in the cells. Depending on the frequency of these vibrations, it can be beneficial to the body or it can be catastrophic. What we want to show right now on this other side here is two different types of electricity. This is an old familiar Jacob's ladder. You've probably seen these around, miniature old Frankenstein movie type devices. This is 60 cycle power, comes right out of the wall, is stepped up through a transformer to 15,000 volts, and you're basically seeing arcing in the air. If you were to touch that flame, it's a very hot flame. If you were to touch those wires, you'd get a very strong jolt. And according to some studies on power line frequencies, if you stay near that for a real length of time, it could be catastrophic to your health. I believe that that is detrimental electricity. Conversely, and we're going to have a little static here from a Tesla coil, that electricity I can touch. I can feel it, goes through my body, and I believe it's beneficial. And most of these electrotherapy devices were based on some adaptation of a Tesla coil or Tesla coil technology. So I think we have an instance here of good electricity and bad electricity. It can be good or bad depending on how it's configured. Now, getting back to the slides, we're going to proceed on and show, or at least we think we show, what does electricity really do to the body. In these early discoveries of electrotherapy, they found out that high-frequency currents would essentially increase the metabolism of the body, would stimulate the increase of the flow of blood in given areas, would also increase secretion, the waste products of the cells, stimulates and soothes the body areas according to length of application, and renders a more complete elimination of waste products. Basically, what we're saying is that these devices do nothing to your body other than stimulate the cells to do the basic metabolism process. Your cells absorb oxygen and the nutrients in the body. They burn these up, and then it's got to get rid of the waste matter. If anything interferes with this process, you're going to have disease. And what these high-frequency currents essentially do is stimulate the activity of those cells to do their design job. And of course, if you overload the system even beyond that with toxins for whatever reason, even these won't do any work. By the way, those of you that do want to take notes or make copies of these, there are reprint packets in the bookstore of all of these slides. If you do want to purchase them, it's up to you. So basically what we're talking about now is a summary of what we've just said and what these high-frequency currents will do. Our bodies consist of nothing but tissue, muscles, and hair, and so forth. They need to just absorb the oxygen to actually function. They've got to chemically combine the oxygen absorbed with the nutrients, and they've got to throw off the waste products. Interesting enough is that if you were to use some of these electromedical devices, and I've used them myself, at times it will tend to make you even sweat more. That's eliminating toxins from your body. It actually just stimulates the cells to a higher level to do some kind of activity. Now, the basic modes that they used to use, again, this is old electrotherapy technology. There are basically 6 different ways that they would use as far as stimulating your cells. There was a mechanical vibration, actual motorized mechanical vibrator. Put this on an area where you had a pain or a congestion of toxins, and it would move it around and stimulate the cells to eventually get rid of those toxins. They did it by Faradic electric current devices, running electricity right through your body. Sinusoidal waves stimulates your cells, evidently more beneficial than other means by a sine wave rather than a square wave. Static electricity means the multiple frequency oscillators or high voltage violet ray or Tesla coil devices, and also by light waves. Again, the common element of all these is vibrations. Vibration seems to be the key. Now what we're going to do now is start to look at some of the old type of devices and facilities that used to exist in this country. That's an electrical operating room of a hospital. Some of these were taken from some very old books, so they may be kind of hard to see, but that certainly is a far cry from what our hospitals look like today. All electrical apparatus, and we'll go into some of the particulars. Now we have another version of a treatment room, and again, fancy furniture type equipment with all this high voltage, high electrostatic type equipment with a couch to do various types of treatment. Now from somewhere along the line there are 2 treatment rooms. One up top, somebody's being treated, and I think it's one of these sinusoidal type devices. Also there's a small diathermy machine on the wall. Down below, this chair is connected to an electrostatic type machine, rotating disc types. And then they also had a therapy lamp. I think it was a UV therapy lamp. So these were one of these universal chairs where once you got in there, they would treat you for various modalities for whatever you had. The top figure above there shows a very crude basic workings of, we got a little focus on it, all modalities. You can see there's a Tesla coil on the top that's going to the head of the gal. They also, in front here, she had she basically had these devices that actually was almost like a from a dentist office. It would put these things in your mouth. It was high frequency probes that came out of there for treatment of your gums and things, for example. A condensation pad, again, treatment here, and it was all in, basically built in these little workstations that had, in some of those days, even batteries and just straight rectifiers. Here's one of these big high frequency static machines, I believe that Jim showed earlier, rotating discs, and again, you have a chair out there insulated from the ground where you would be placed in there and be treated with high frequency electricity. Down at the bottom, you will notice different sections of hospitals or treatment sections. They had different sections for everything: diathermy, high frequency, Faraday currents, you name it, they had it. All different rooms of a hospital. It's kind of ironic that we hear today that some of these devices are referred to as quack electrical devices, which gives the illusion that there was a couple of doctors in the garage that dreamed up a couple of devices and did all kinds of strange treatment. This, to me, does not look like that. We've got hospitals that had this equipment, clinics, physician offices. They even sold these on the common market. It was more extensive than even I realized in the beginning. Here's one of these high-frequency static type devices. You'll notice the patient is up on an insulated chair. She's got the high frequency going right to his back on the top one. On the bottom, and the middle one is going right to his hand, and there's an exploded view at the bottom. High frequency electricity going direct treatment to his hand. Now we'll get into several other different modalities. This one on the left there is an obvious Tesla coil. You can see the primary, secondary very clearly. Most units in these medical offices, now by Tesla coils, we don't mean the Tesla coils that we're playing with today. Try and get the biggest spark, the most show. These were high current type devices. Their design was to minimize the sparks, just enough to treat your body, but the emphasis was on current. Most of those machines, as you can see, have a milliampere on them. When we get into some of the diathermy machines we'll show later, we're talking of running hundreds of milliamps of high-frequency current through your body, not microamps, hundreds of milliamps into the ampere range. Treating for different types of diseases up here, as you can see, the indirect method on this one is she is connected to the machine, the operator, and through her hands she's treating the face of the patient. That's an indirect method, getting very, very fine type electrical treatment. Treating the shoulder down to here, they had actual wires running to those two pads for treating the shoulder. Auto condensation method, which means the gal that's on the plate there is actually part of the condenser of one of these units, acting as one plate. As you can see, they had quite an extensive different types of equipment. The one above is a diathermy machine, and you can see on the front panel, then if you look close enough, there are spark gaps. Some of those machines had as many as 12 spark gaps, and they would produce 3,000 or 4,000 milliamps. And how they would treat a person is you started with all the spark gaps closed, and you started opening up each one at a time. And you had to do it quite right. There have been instances where people's organs were literally burned up inside from a misapplication of such a high Tesla current. So maybe some of the bad publicity on some of these came from inaccurate operation, how to apply these machines. Again, there's another type of machine here, sitting on a chair. Most things were all tied to chairs. They had different probes, different apparatus, and you sat on an insulated chair and for certain periods of time. And we'll go into some of that on some of the smaller devices. Just look at some of the old fascinating type of devices we used to have. Those are not electric chairs like you would have in the prison, but it is an electric chair. But it was used for a different purpose. You'll notice the chair on the far right, that balls on the end, those were for high frequency things, putting your hands on there. It was an actual metal chair on the seat and on the back, and also on the footrest. Again, for different treatment parts of your body. You became part of a plate of a capacitor in some of these modalities. Old chairs in the bottom, and then the portable type units on the left here. Notice all of these, they have the milliampere gauges, because you were talking some pretty hefty Tesla currents. Not big voltages. Here's a view of some other different types of equipment. Some of those would have all modalities. This as far as Faraday type currents, vibrational currents. They also had electrosurgery, that they would be able to even do an operation and cut your skin, for example, and you would not bleed, because they had cauterizing type modalities on this equipment. And here's some of the bigger pieces of equipment, and as you can see, they were built into some pretty fancy pieces of furniture that doctors would have in their offices and or in hospitals. Obvious one on the lower left there is the Tesla coil, probe sticking out. Again, you can see the milliamp meter. Electrostatic machine up above and down to your right, where they have the rotating wheels similar to a Wimhurst machine. This is different type of apparatus here. Sinusoidal generator, multiplex generator. The one on the far left in the corner is a small portable diathermy machine, and if you've been out to the display in the other building, you'll see that exact machine out there. It still does work. And then also some ray therapy lamps. This is a different collection of types of equipment that you might find in an average doctor's office or in hospitals. Okay, today one of our problems still seems to be pyorrhea, bleeding gums and things that we all go to the dentist for now, and he scrapes our teeth and gums and tries to clean all this stuff out. Well, evidently in those days they even had special apparatus hooked up to these machines to sort of help that problem. Unfortunately, I've never come across that attachment or its exact technology, at least yet. Different modalities here. They had an electric bath type thing. I'll show you more of these different photos on this, where a person's feet is in the tubs and they were wired up to these machines, and his hands also. That was referred to as one modality of an electric bath. Here's another view. This is from a diathermy machine. As you can see across the top, the little opening right above the milliamp meter, those were the spark gaps that were all the older machines had external gaps. So they can actually adjust right on the front. And again, this was for painful joints in his legs here and also in his wrists. And he was wired up with the wrists, also right direct to the machine. Different types of treatment here. Again, these were both diathermy machines. And as you can see, a lot of this stuff was done by basically the assistants or nurses. Once they were trained into using this equipment, they did a lot of the work in those days. Here's an interesting one here, tied to one of these machines, but they used coils. As you can see, the top one, he's got a throat problem. So they had heavy currents running around through these coils, high-frequency currents, and that was one modality of treatment. Pancake coils to his back, different plates in the back. You look at some of these odd contraptions and you could just hard to even imagine that so many different varieties of things once existed. Here's other types of devices. On the top left, you can see an obvious Tesla coil, and he's treating her on the face with basically the end of a violet ray type machine. The middle photo is light, various UV, ultraviolet, and violet ray type light treatments in some kind of an operating room. And down below, they had one of these condensation type cages. They would put the patient in there and run the high frequency currents right to that cage. And you could stay in there for X amount of time. Interesting types of contraptions and modalities they had for treating different things in those days. Okay, here's another situation being treated by an electrostatic machine, sitting up on a chair, insulated platform. I believe he had some kind of a growth on his tongue. There's a before and after photo of treatment with one of these high-frequency machines. Ozone generator on the right was a common type of device used in physician offices, which we're almost getting back to today, but they once existed quite readily. And who says electricity and water don't mix? If you have the right kind of electricity, which they had in those days, you could be in a total bathtub and run the electricity right through your whole body and get an electric bath. The one down below is a partial galvanic bath. Put your feet in the buckets and your arms in the two side buckets, and that was your treatment. You would not do it nowadays with 60 cycles coming out of your wall. So again, it depends on how electricity is configured. Different modalities of a hospital, different types of treating rooms, sinusoidal generator, I think above, down below, I think it's a ultraviolet section. So they actually had sections of hospitals that do different types of treating with different electrical apparatus. So it was that extensive. Again, to kind of quickly go through this is different modalities here. The one on the upper left, according to the information there, it was a patient that had real serious arthritis and other types of problems. He could not even be removed from his wheelchair to be brought on the platform for treatment. His wheelchair and him had to be lifted up and put right on that static machine. But the percentage, evidently, of beneficial treatment on these was absolutely phenomenal. But that's supposedly a case that that worked out. Got on, it had to be wheeled up there and got off without the wheelchair. Down below, it looks like we have an army hospital or whatever, where again they're treating with different electrical apparatus. And you can see on the walls, they have the little portable units mounted on the walls for treatment for different areas. Different sections again of hospitals, but again, it's all electrical apparatus. You look at some of this stuff, and if it was all put together in one room, you're talking about a Frankenstein laboratory, what it would look like. Different sections of hospitals here, different beds, and each one, as you can see, has a little either sinusoidal generator, ultraviolet, or diathermy machine by each cot or each bed, for whatever application was needed at the time. Fascinating type just reading, just going through some of this old literature just to see what we really had. Another treatment room right above. Here's a typical heavy-duty diathermy machine in physician offices. The one on the lower left is a portable unit. They would go to your house with it. Take it out with those two bags connected together, and you'd be treated right in your own home. The one in the middle is a diathermy machine with about 12 spark gaps, big heavy current ammeter, and that would produce 3,000 to 4,000 milliamps. And those were very critical as far as how to set them up when you were doing some real heavy current treatment. Now these are sinusoidal generators. You can see it's a motor generator type thing, and it was used for treating, again, different types of problems that a person had. So they did it in different modalities, all the way from the high frequency to actual sine waves to some of the galvanic type currents, which we already went over. Different treatments here, so you can see they had these odd-looking contraptions. That was a little portable unit on the right with wheels. And I believe on that one he is being treated for tuberculosis on the lip. Even in those days. Specific application. Different treatments here of in the back with diathermy machines. Again, nothing but plates, different parts of your back. Now we get into some of the light type of therapy. using ultraviolet or different types of light. There's one of the machines there that would put the patient in, close it up, and would be treated for a certain period of time, all into the light range now. Again, light is nothing more than different frequency vibrations. It all had to do with vibrations. Some of you may remember, and I remember seeing at different times, these old light cabinets that they used to have. Put a patient inside, and then basically some of that was just the regular bulbs, but they would run them at different frequencies. And again, just being in these light rays for periods of time evidently has a beneficial effect on the body. So it's amazing just the different types of equipment and apparatus and techniques that they used in those days. Here's some mercury vapor solarium that they used to have in a lot of the hospitals. Cold quartz mercury vapor lamp. And I believe in one of these they were even treating children for tuberculosis in some of these ray therapy type lamps. Another view of some of these, that's the one that they were treating the tuberculous children above with different types of lamps. Also had it for the patient down below, and then they also had different machines here that they would run light and even an electric bath through them also, so you got the full treatment. So I say, hardly in any of these here is there even two pieces of equipment that are even alike. It was that extensive. Now we can go into some of the specific types of little small home unit devices that used to be out there. This is a motorized vibrator. I've got one on the display in the other room. You might think a vibrator is just to vibrate your body and for massaging, and that's all there is to it. There's whole booklets on what these vibrators would do as far as treating different diseases. And basically what this does is vibrate the cells of your body again to do their thing. It's a form of vibration. And they even had some of those designed that the motor vibrator went into a special elliptic pattern and so forth. Again, who knows what they were really trying to do in some of these areas, but the basic technique of a vibrator was to remove toxins from one's body. Again, to promote health. By the way, there is literature available on most of this equipment, reprints anyway, in the bookstore, if you are interested. Here's another means of using a little motorized hand vibrator on one's hand, and they also connected it to a chair to make a vibrating chair. Instead of having a whole motorized built-in system, they just used a portable one and went from there. More techniques of vibration. They even had these pads that, as you can see, she's using over her eye. So they had a motorized vibrator, which was pretty powerful, but with a sponge-type attachment that went right over to treat the eye. The gal below for treating her forehead, and then also one on the left to the back. So they were used again for every part of the body. This we can't see too well here, but this is called an electrete, and I'm going to go over in a few minutes and demonstrate what this little electrete device would do. It's a little battery-operated device. You can see two flashlight batteries in there, and there's nothing more than a little vibrator and a roller in the end. They would run up and down your body to treat all kinds of different diseases, pains, and so forth. It's kind of ironic that recently I read where modern medicine is doing some experimentation with people that have bone breaks and the bones won't heal. So they're trying to run electricity through there to promote the healing. Here's a device with a patent pending date, 1919, that supposedly in the literature says it does that very same thing. It does heal bone breaks. There's a whole packet of literature on this device also, how to use it, what polarity to use for what. Then Then we get into the violet ray type equipment, as some of you have seen this morning over there. We've demonstrated. These are high frequency devices, nothing more than a Tesla coil, with vacuum tube probes at the end that diffuse the electricity, so it's not so powerful for your body. They have all kinds of different devices with various types of probes, and we'll go into some of that now to show how extensive it really was. Violet ray, as you can see on the top left, she's got a comb rake attachment that goes through your hair, massages your scalp, or if you've got scalp problems, would help. The photo in the middle, she's putting it right over her eye. And I believe one of the treatments for the eye in the old literature was to remove cataracts. Supposedly that machine did it. Down below they even had attachments to the violet ray unit that was a ozone generator. And they had an inhalant that went in that little bulb there to take out the nitric oxides after the sparks. And what she was breathing through her nose there is pure ozone. Now, to kind of show the different electrodes that they used to go into these machines, they say they had one just about for every orifice of your body. Flat ones, the rake. Number 4 was for your spine, to go up and down your back and both sides of your spine. Number 5 for your neck. Then they had the different probes. That was a metal probe you would hold in your hand for your whole body treatment. And here's the rest of them. So it was probably around 20 probes altogether. Some of those were niceties. You could reach most parts of your body with just a one rod or a flat probe. But as you can see there, they made it more convenient to every part of your body. Like over your eye, they had a concave probe that fit right over your eye. You could have done, I think, just as easily with a flat probe. Now, we've got some reprints of some instructions on some of these machines, the violet ray machines. As you can see the little code down below there, S for strong, or a short spark, medium, long spark, mild, or do you go contact directly with your skin? That's the code for the supposed treatment of all kinds of different diseases, starting from an abscess on down. As you can see, I don't know if you can see from this very clear, but it will show you what probe to use, how long to use it, the frequency, like every day, every other day, what kind of a spark you should use, direct contact with your skin or not. And it goes pages and pages and pages of different diseases in those days and how to treat it. So it sounds like they have a little experience in doing this just to even come up with this kind of information. And they're all listed in alphabetical order, so just quickly go through just to give you an idea. But like I say, besides the presentation of these slides being available in the bookstore, there's also information packets, quite extensive in some cases, of most of this equipment. By the way, also in the bookstore. Other different types of devices. As you can see, some of those had different modalities as far as you can see the waveforms that some of these machines would produce. Direct DC, sine waves, different spike type waves, or whatever. They had induction batteries. That's the middle photo here. Got one of those available, nothing more than the battery there and an induction coil. They run electricity right through your body. To me, it's kind of an uncomfortable feeling, but I guess it does its thing. Then we go into the ultraviolet ray therapy machine. I've got one of these machines out here at the conference. Cold quartz type machine is one of these things that if you stay too long in one spot, you could literally burn yourself with that, and you basically have to wear dark glasses, not even look directly at the bulb on that. Okay, so now we want to go into the other side of the room here. We'll take a look at some of the couple of devices in actuality. By the way, as long as we're at the conference here for the next couple of days, if you do want to try any of these yourselves, you're quite welcome to. Come on over and try it a few times a day and see what it does. Can you hear it? No, we can't hear it. This is the Electro. It's got basically 2 flashlight batteries in here, and once you turn this on, you can hear it starts to vibrate. And you start to turn it down more and more and more, and it gets so strong you cannot even touch the end of this. But again, people that had a real problem in their body, and I've had people try this, they'll turn it almost all the way down and they won't even feel it, which means that area is almost dead, in essence. But after they use it for a while, and the instructions say the same thing, you keep using it for a while, then you will start to feel more sensation in that area. Then you'll have to lower the intensity, and you'll feel it more and more, and eventually you'll take it all the way off. That just by barely touching it, you will start to feel electricity running through you. So again, it did things to your body that stimulated your cells, but a very simple type device. This is a violet ray type device. As you can see, arcs right to your hand. You can run it to your face. If you had a cataract on your eye, you put it right over your eye. Got a tooth problem, you stick it right inside your mouth. And you can adjust through the spark gap. You can adjust the different intensities. This is the comb rake attachment that would go in, again, high frequency for your hair. Then they had the basic rod, like I basically used myself when I had an abscessed tooth, and I'm still experimenting on myself. Sticking this in here and arcing direct to my tooth, right inside. I got rid of the pain. At least I'm that far along. What it'll do after that, I'm following the instructions. Then they have different probes. This is more of a condenser probe. It's got a piece of metal inside that gives you a very strong spark to your skin. Some of these probes, other than the photos, I've never even seen or come across myself. So again, I'm always on the lookout for different attachments and different pieces. So that's about it. Does anybody have any questions on this? And like I say, you're quite welcome to come by and we'll demonstrate this on you, and you can try it.
What period of time were these used in wide use? Did it end with the rise of sulfa drugs, or when? Yeah,
basically 30s and 40s, they started really starting to phase out. By 40s, they weren't even hardly using these things. They were using them more for a beauty treatment, that type of thing, but not from a medical standpoint. These electrates, like I say, 1919, and the second patent date is 1931 on this.
I'd like to add something to what you've already said. There are medical textbooks that are very hard to find. That one was written by a professor at Harvard Medical School on nothing but the application. The textbook is that thick, written for just doctors, on the application of the violet ray.
Exactly.
It's medical history, it's documented patient recovery rate, and etc. I have one of those old textbooks.
Very good. I'm always looking for textbooks. I've got several myself. In fact, a lot of these were taken excerpts of these textbooks, and also the reprint literature that I do have is available, and a lot of it is testimonials and this type of thing.
The other question was, I noticed you mentioned the multi-wave oscillator, but you didn't show anything on that, on George Lukoski's oscillator.
Yeah, I've got no information on it. I've come across different machines, but not old original ones. So again, my nearest thing to what I can understand from the multi-wave oscillator, in essence, it could almost be a violet ray machine, only you're radiating yourself with it rather than direct contact.
No, that's not. What it is there's 12 frequencies. There's 12 different radio frequencies that are thrown out to the body. There's no direct contact. And the work that was done on that was French Medical Hospital by MDs. Through George Lukoski, work in conjunction with Nikola Tesla.
Right, right.
So, I have some information on that I'll share with you.
Very good, very good.
Just a note on the electrate, a person in the family received a very bad burn on the hand, and it literally scarred the entire top of the hand. And
From an electric or from a violet ray?
No, from being burned by hot wax. And this person used the electric and completely got rid of all the scar tissue inside about 2 months.
I remember reading something. I think the literature is extensive literature on these. That's half the thing. To me, these would be worthless if it wasn't for the old literature that went with it.
Before, during the lecture on vacuum tubes, there was the production of X-rays. In these vacuum tubes with the violet rays, is there any of that kind of thing happening?
No, this is basically the output of a Tesla coil. It's not an X-ray machine.
Well, putting that output through a vacuum tube produces X-rays.
But you're not talking the kind of power and the kind of frequencies that they're talking on X-rays.
Do you know anyone who today uses any of this retreat?
Pardon me again?
Do you know anyone today who uses any of this retreat?
Not officially, no. There's people experimenting and working on themselves and everything, but as far as I know, at least here in this country, there isn't. Right, that's...
Thank you.
Any other questions? In the back?
Reason for this alcohol or what is your opinion?
Well, my personal opinion is, and again, it's my own personal opinion, when they started selling these machines in department stores like Montgomery Ward, where you can go home and treat yourself, that sort of could hit deep into the pocketbooks of certain companies. And if you have a lot of money invested in certain companies, and you wanted research done and were giving grants to colleges, would you give money to continue on developing devices like this, or would you give that money for researching other types of products, your own, that might not have been along these lines? True, and then you also, like I say, you did have bad publicity. Let's face it, there was some quack doctors that they were maybe good doctors, but they didn't have electrical knowledge, and to run hundreds of milliamps through your body, did they know what they were doing? And from what I can gather, some of the old literature, there were some serious problems done, and mainly it was from an application standpoint. In fact, some of the manufacturers finally got out there in these diathermy machines and started having extensive training courses for these physicians. What you've got to look out for, what you've got to do when you start treating, you just don't start running several amps to a person at these kind of power rates.
Can I add just something on that again, if I may? You said you got your first one in the swap meet. I got mine in an estate sale, and it was about 20 years ago, my first vibrator, and it was already 40 years old then. Old clock cord.
Right.
Made back in the 20s.
In the 20s, right.
Right, and I got it from the doctor's wife. He had died, and the widow. And she said, I don't know what this thing is, but he carried it in his little black bag with him every day for 40 years. Never broke down. He used it on everybody. He was an old country doctor.
Right.
He used it for everything.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's how I got a hold of my first one, and then I was just like you. I was curious.
Just what is it?
All right, what was going on? And I kept running into blocks trying to research it through normal medical research.
Right.
Or through the normal educational channels or Library of Congress. So they've destroyed a lot of this information. So I've been collecting that myself for a while.
That's what I'm really trying to do, is make people aware of it. Sort of a central location where we can buy or sell or exchange these devices, make reprint literature or whatever is obtained. Keep the technology out there and encourage people to experiment. Well, it looks like our time is up here, so I thank you all, and come on for a demonstration.